Become her fiancé. Below it, a message, I know who you are. We need to talk. It's from Julian, Dominic said quietly. How long do you think he's known? Maybe the whole time. Maybe he's been playing us the way we've been playing him. Aria's phone rang. Julian's name on the screen. Her hand shook as she answered. Hello? Aria Chen. Julian's voice was smooth, unsurprised. Or should I call you Aria Sullivan? You've been very clever. I almost didn't recognize you. What do you want? To talk. Just you and me. Tomorrow, noon, at the coffee shop where we had our first date. You remember that place, don't you? And if I don't come? Then I tell Chloe everything. About you, about Dominic, about this whole elaborate revenge plot. I'm sure she'll be fascinated to learn that her wedding planners are the two people I've hurt most in my life. You don't know about Dominic. Julian laughed. Of course I do. I recognized him the first day we met. That scar I gave him is pretty distinctive. I've just been waiting to see how far you two would take this. Aria felt sick. Why let us continue? Because it's entertaining. And because I wanted to see if you'd actually go through with it. Turns out you're both more committed to this than I expected. It's almost admirable. There's nothing admirable about any of this. No? You've spent months planning my wedding, getting close to my fiancé, all so you could, what exactly? Ruin my big day? Expose me? Get some kind of satisfaction? Aria was quiet. What had been the plan? She'd never actually articulated the endgame, not even to herself. That's what I thought, Julian said. You're playing at revenge without any idea what you actually want. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like he was afraid she might break. Aria kissed him back, tasting whiskey and want and all the things they'd been dancing around for months. When they finally pulled apart, she was breathless. This changes everything, she whispered. I know. We should probably stop. Probably. But neither of them moved. They stood in the parking garage, holding each other, knowing they'd just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. The revenge plot had just become infinitely more complicated, because now they had something real to lose. The revelation. Over the next 2 months, Aria and Dominic fell into a rhythm that was part professional partnership, part romance, and entirely consuming. They worked during the day, planning every detail of Julian's wedding. At night, they explored this new thing between them, careful and cautious but undeniably real. The wedding plans came together beautifully. Aria coordinated with vendors, managed timelines, and handled Chloe's increasingly elaborate requests. Dominic refined his designs, working with contractors to transform the Sterling Museum into something magical. They were good together. Better than good. They anticipated each other's needs, covered each other's weaknesses, and pushed each other to be better. Cross Architecture started getting calls from other clients, impressed by the Prescott Hart wedding buzz. But the closer they got to the wedding, the more the deception weighed on Aria. She was sitting in Dominic's apartment one night, 3 weeks before the wedding, when it all came crashing down. They'd been reviewing final details when Aria's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She opened it and felt the blood drain from her face. What's wrong? Dominic asked. Aria couldn't speak. She just handed him her phone. The text contained a single photo, Aria and Julian together, from years ago, at one of her company events. Her long hair, her old smile, her arm around the man who would. Hour going over details. Aria pulled out her tablet, showing mood boards and vendor lists. Dominic presented refined sketches of the venue transformation. They were professional, prepared, perfect. By the time they left the restaurant, Chloe was glowing. You two are amazing. I'm so glad we found you. Julian remained quiet, watching them with an expression Aria couldn't quite read. In the parking garage, after Julian and Chloe drove away in their Tesla, Aria finally exhaled. That was exhausting. He knows something's off, Dominic said. I could see him trying to figure it out all night. But he doesn't know what. We're safe. For now. They stood by Arya's car. The parking garage was empty except for them, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that made everything look cold and distant. Can I ask you something? Dominic said. When Julian asked if we were together, why did you look at me like that? Arya's heart skipped. Like what? Like you wanted to say yes. She should have denied it. Should have laughed it off and driven home. Instead, she said, would that be so terrible? Dominic stepped closer. It would be complicated. You keep saying that. Because it's true. We're planning Julian's wedding to get revenge. We're building a company together. If this goes wrong, it won't. You don't know that. Arya reached up and touched his face, feeling the familiar scar through his eyebrow. I know that I trust you. I know that I haven't felt this way about anyone since Julian destroyed me. And I know that's terrifying, but I'm tired of being afraid. Dominic covered her hand with his. I haven't been with anyone since Sarah. I don't know if I remember how to do this. Neither do I. Julian. Chloe laughed. You can't just ask people that. Why not? I'm curious. There's a chemistry there. I can see it. Arya felt her face flush. Dominic's expression remained neutral, but his hand had tensed in hers. We keep things professional, Dominic said. Right. Julian's smile was knowing. Professional. I tried that once with a colleague. Didn't work out. He glanced at Chloe. Before you, obviously. The rest of dinner passed in careful conversation. Chloe talked about her work at her father's nonprofit. Julian dominated the discussion when it turned to business, explaining his role at Prescott Development with the practiced ease of someone who'd given the speech 100 times. Arya watched him, trying to remember what she'd loved about this man. He was charming, certainly. Successful. But there was something hollow about him, something performative. Every gesture felt calculated, every story designed to impress. Had he always been like this? Or had she been too blind to see it? What about family? Chloe asked, turning to Arya. Do you have siblings? No, only child. My parents are back in California. Julian has 2 brothers. It's chaotic but wonderful. Big families are so important to me. I want at least 4 kids. She squeezed Julian's hand. He keeps trying to negotiate down to 2. I'm just being realistic, Julian said. Kids are expensive. Your family has plenty of money. It's not about money. It's about time, attention. Quality over quantity. Something in his tone made Arya's skin crawl. She thought about Melissa's daughter from the affair, the child Julian had abandoned. Quality over quantity indeed. I think 4 sounds perfect, Arya said, meeting Julian's eyes. Every child deserves to be wanted. Julian held her gaze for a moment too long. Interesting philosophy. Dominic cleared his throat. We should probably discuss the timeline. The wedding is in 4 months. That's tight for a project this scale. They spent the next. To be part of it. After they hung up, Arya relayed the conversation to Dominic. He's suspicious, Dominic said immediately. Maybe. Or maybe he's just controlling. Or both. Dominic ran a hand through his hair. This changes things. The more time we spend with him, the more likely he'll recognize one of us. Then we'll have to be very, very careful. Dinner with ghosts. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't list prices on the menu. Glass walls overlooked the city lights. A pianist played soft jazz in the corner. Julian and Chloe were already seated when Arya and Dominic arrived. Arya had spent 2 hours getting ready, changing outfits 4 times before settling on a black dress that was elegant but not memorable. She'd styled her hair differently, pulled back in a sleek bun. She looked professional, polished, and nothing like the woman Julian had proposed to. There they are. Chloe stood, radiant in a pale pink dress. She hugged Arya like they were old friends. You look gorgeous. Doesn't she look gorgeous, Julian? Julian stood, extending his hand. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than Arya's rent. Beautiful, he said, but he was looking at Arya with that same studying expression from their first meeting. Dominic shook Julian's hand, and Arya watched carefully for any sign of recognition. But Julian's smile remained pleasant and empty. They ordered drinks. Chloe launched into wedding details, showing them inspiration photos on her phone. Arya and Dominic responded appropriately, professional and engaged. But under the table, Arya felt Dominic's hand find hers, a brief squeeze of reassurance. So, Julian said, leaning back in his chair after the waiter took their orders. Tell me about yourselves. How did you two meet? Through work, Arya said smoothly. I was consulting on an architectural project. And you just clicked? Something like that. Julian's eyes moved between them. Are you together? More than professionally, I mean? Your life. Do you think you'll ever trust someone again? She asked. Dominic looked at her for a long moment. I'm starting to. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Arya felt her heart rate pick up. She should change the subject, pivot to something safe and professional. Instead, she asked, starting to trust who? I think you know. He was right. She did know. It was there in the way they worked together, the easy rhythm they'd developed. The way he brought her coffee in the morning exactly how she liked it. The way she stayed late to help him finish designs even when her part was done. The way they'd somehow become partners in more than just business. This complicates things, Arya said. Everything about this is already complicated. More complicated, then. Dominic leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only thing that makes sense. Before Arya could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, Chloe Hart. I should take this. Dominic nodded, leaning back as Arya answered. Hi Chloe. It's late, is everything okay? I'm so sorry to call after hours, Chloe's voice was bright and excited. I just couldn't wait. I wanted to tell you personally, my father loved the proposal. He did some background checking on cross architecture, very impressed with the work you've done recently. Arya's stomach dropped. Background checking. She glanced at Dominic, who'd gone very still. That's wonderful, Arya managed. There's one thing though. Julian wants to be more involved in the planning. He has some ideas about the aesthetic, and honestly, I think it's sweet that he cares so much. Would you both be available for a dinner meeting next week? Just the 4 of us? Of course. We'd love that. Perfect. I'll have my assistant send details. Oh, and Arya? Thank you for making this dream come true. You have no idea how much this wedding means to me. The sincerity in Chloe's voice made Arya's chest tighten. We're honoré. Blueprints of revenge. The contract. Arya read the contract 3 times before signing it. Every clause was standard, but the reality of what they were doing hit her each time she saw Julian's name printed on the page. Dominic signed without hesitation, his signature bold and dark across the bottom. $50,000 deposit, he said, setting down his pen. This saves the company. This is real now, Arya replied. It was always real. Now it's just official. They were sitting in Dominic's office late on a Thursday night. Outside, rain hammered against the warehouse windows. Inside, Chinese takeout containers littered the desk between them, and architectural sketches covered every available surface. For 2 months, they'd been building cross architecture back from nothing. This wedding contract was their first major win. We should celebrate, Dominic said. Should we? He pulled out a bottle of whiskey from his desk drawer, expensive stuff, the kind you save for special occasions. He poured 2 glasses without asking if she wanted any. To revenge, he said, raising his glass. To justice, Arya corrected, clinking her glass against his. The whiskey burned going down, but it felt good, warming her from the inside. Dominic poured another round. Can I ask you something? Arya said. You're going to anyway. What happened to Sarah? Your ex-fiancée. Dominic's expression closed off slightly. What about her? You said she married Julian's brother. Are they still together? Divorced. She called me a year ago, drunk, saying she'd made a mistake. That she believed Julian's lies because his family had money and status and I was just a broke architecture student with nothing to offer. What did you say? I told her I forgave her, and then I hung up. I meant the forgiving part, but I didn't want to hear the rest. Arya understood that. Forgiveness wasn't the same as reconciliation. You could release someone from their debt to you without letting them back into habit. The moment passed. They discussed details for another 30 minutes, and by the end, Chloe was ready to sign. I'll need to run this by my father, she said. It's a formality, but with his political position, he likes to vet all major vendors. Of course, Arya said. We're happy to provide any additional information he needs. They shook hands again. As Julian and Chloe left, Arya heard Chloe whisper to her fiancé, she's exactly the right amount of professional and creative. I love them. Julian murmured something in response, and then they were gone. Arya waited until the door closed before she sat down hard in one of the chairs. Her hands were shaking. You did it, Dominic said. He had no idea. His fiancé seems nice. Don't do that. Don't feel bad for her. I'm not feeling bad. I'm just noticing that she's nothing like Melissa. Or me. Dominic crouched in front of her chair so they were eye level. Julian makes people into whoever he needs them to be. Melissa was a connection. You were stability and success. Chloe is political power. None of it's real. How do you know? Because I knew him before he learned how to fake everything. Dominic's voice was quiet. The real Julian Prescott is the guy who stole my work and slept with my fiancée while I was visiting my dying mother. That's who he is when no one's watching. Arya looked into Dominic's gray eyes and saw old pain there, the kind that never fully healed. She reached out and touched the scar through his eyebrow. How did you get this? Julian. Senior year. We got in a fight about Sarah. He threw a glass. Her hand moved from his scar to his jaw, and she felt him tense under her touch. The air between them changed, became charged with possibility. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Probably. But neither of them moved away. The moment stretched, full of things unsaid, until Arya's phone buzzed with an email notification. She pulled back, breaking the spell. Absolutely stunning. I showed Julian and he agreed this is exactly the aesthetic we want. Arya's heart skipped, but she kept her smile steady. We're thrilled you're interested. Will your fiancé be joining us? He should be here any minute. He's terrible with time. As if on cue, the door opened. Julian Prescott walked in, phone to his ear, barely glancing at them as he finished his call. Sorry, work crisis. You know how it is. He looked the same. Same perfectly styled hair, same expensive suit, same easy confidence. When he finally looked up at Arya and Dominic, his eyes passed over them without recognition. Julian Prescott. He extended his hand to Dominic first. You must be Cross Architecture? Dominic Cross. And this is my partner, Arya Sullivan. Arya had chosen her grandmother's maiden name. She shook Julian's hand, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction when his expression remained blank. Great to meet you both. So, show us what you've got. For the next hour, Arya and Dominic presented their vision. Dominic's architectural renderings transformed the museum into something magical. Arya's planning expertise covered every detail, from timeline to vendor coordination to contingency plans. Chloe was enthralled. Julian was nodding, impressed despite himself. This is perfect, Chloe breathed. Julian, this is exactly what I wanted. Julian leaned back in his chair, studying the presentation boards. The budget's a bit high. Quality costs, Arya said smoothly. But we can work with you on the pricing structure. We want this to be as beautiful as you both deserve. Something in her tone made Julian look at her more closely. For one heart-stopping moment, Arya thought he recognized her. But then he smiled, that charming smile she'd once loved. You know, you remind me of someone. Do you have a sister or? I have one of those faces, Arya interrupted. I get that a lot. Chloe laughed. Julian thinks everyone looks like someone he knows. It's a terrible. Aggressive but reasonable. The timeline was tight but achievable. They sent the proposal to Chloe's wedding planner, a woman Arya had never worked with before. Then they waited. 3 days later, they got the call. Chloe wanted to meet. This is insane, Arya said, pacing Dominic's office. What if Julian recognizes me? He won't. You look different now. It was true. Arya had cut her long black hair into a sharp bob. She'd lost weight from stress and gained it back in muscle from running every morning to clear her head. She wore glasses now, clear-framed and stylish. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. But what if? Arya. Dominic caught her hand, stopping her pacing. You're good at this. Better than good. You're going to walk in there, pitch the wedding of their dreams, and they're going to hire us. And Julian will never see you coming. His hand was warm around hers. She realized he was standing very close, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and woody. Why are you really doing this? She asked quietly. Because you deserve to win. And because I'm tired of letting Julian Prescott take things from me. Is that all? Dominic's gray eyes held hers. No. But the rest is complicated. He didn't elaborate, and Arya didn't push. Not yet. The meeting. The Sterling Museum gleamed in the afternoon sun. Arya and Dominic arrived early, setting up their presentation in the private meeting room Chloe had reserved. Arya wore a navy blue suit that made her look older, more established. Dominic wore all black, professional but with an edge that spoke to his artistic side. When Chloe Hart walked in, Arya understood why Julian had chosen her. She was beautiful in an effortless way, blonde and poised, with kind eyes and a genuine smile. She wasn't like Melissa, the woman Julian had cheated with. Chloe seemed real. Arya almost felt bad. Almost. Thank you so much for meeting with us, Chloe said, shaking their hands. Your portfolio is. The wedding? Julian wouldn't recognize my work if it came through the right channels. We could create something so spectacular that everyone in the city would be talking about it. We'd rebuild both our reputations. And then what? And then nothing. We do brilliant work, we get paid, we use the publicity to launch cross-architecture into the major leagues. We win by being better than him. Dominic studied her face. You're lying. You want more than that. Arya met his eyes. Maybe I do. Maybe I want him to know, right before his perfect wedding, that the woman he destroyed and the man his family ruined are the reason his big day is even possible. Maybe I want him to realize we didn't need his approval to succeed. That's still revenge. No. Arya's voice was firm. Revenge would be ruining the wedding. This is justice. This is showing him that he didn't break us. Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile this time, sharp and dangerous. Okay. Let's do it. Neither of them mentioned that planning Julian's wedding would mean spending months in close quarters, working together on something deeply personal. Neither acknowledged that the air between them already felt charged with something more than professional partnership. But they both felt it. Building the trap. Creating a new company identity took 2 weeks. Arya called it Luminous Events, registered under a colleague's name who owed her a favor. The portfolio was carefully curated, photos of Arya's best work but with subtle alterations, different angles, credit given to her friend. The pitch packet was flawless. Dominic designed a custom venue transformation concept for the historic Sterling Museum, where Chloe Hart had apparently dreamed of getting married since childhood. The design was breathtaking, floating installations that would transform the classical museum into a modern fairy tale. Arya handled the business proposal, projecting confidence she didn't quite feel. The budget was. Arya sat down slowly. So this is revenge. You hired me to get back at Julian. No. Dominic's voice was quiet but firm. I hired you because you're good at what you do, and because I thought you deserved a second chance. The fact that we both have reason to hate Julian Prescott is just a convenient coincidence. I don't believe you. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You will. The seed of an idea. Over the next month, Arya and Dominic worked together to pull Cross architecture from the brink. She brought in smaller projects at first, corporate events that needed custom staging, restaurants that wanted architectural consultation for renovations. Dominic's designs were brilliant, innovative in ways that reminded Arya why she loved design in the first place. They worked late nights. They argued over budgets and timelines. And slowly, something shifted between them. The professional distance began to crack. One night, after closing a significant deal with a hotel chain, Dominic ordered Chinese food and they ate in his office, surrounded by blueprints and material samples. Can I ask you something? Arya said, setting down her chopsticks. Probably won't stop you if I say no. Do you ever think about real revenge? Not just rebuilding, but actually making him pay? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. Every day for the first 3 years. Now? Sometimes. Why? Arya pulled out her phone and showed him a social media post. Julian Prescott, arm around a stunning brunette, diamond ring prominently displayed. The caption read, "She said yes. Planning the wedding of the century with my beautiful Chloe. Senator Hart's daughter," Dominic said, recognizing the woman. Julian's moving up in the world. The wedding of the century, Arya repeated. What if we gave them exactly that? What do you mean? Arya leaned forward. I mean, what if Cross Architecture partnered with a top-tier event company, one I could create under a different name, and we pitched them for? Nagged at her, why had Dominic really hired her? The answer came on a Friday evening when she was working late. Dominic had left for a meeting, and Arya was organizing his chaotic filing system. In the bottom drawer of his desk, she found an old photograph. For young men at a college party. She recognized one immediately, Julian Prescott, younger and cockier. Next to him stood Dominic, but different. This Dominic was smiling, open, his arm around a beautiful blonde woman. Arya turned the photo over. Written in faded ink, Dom, Julian, Marcus, and Jake. Best years of our lives. 2015. Her hands went cold. She pulled out her phone and searched, Dominic Cross Julian Prescott. The first result was a news article from 7 years ago. Architecture student loses scholarship after cheating scandal. Dominic Cross, 23, was expelled from Stanford after allegations of plagiarism. His accuser, Julian Prescott, provided evidence that Cross had stolen his senior thesis design. Arya kept reading, her heart pounding. The article mentioned that Cross had maintained his innocence, that he claimed the design was his and Prescott had stolen it. But the Prescott family's lawyers had been thorough. Dominic had lost everything: his scholarship, his degree, his future. That article doesn't tell the whole story. Arya spun around. Dominic stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. You should have told me, Arya said. Would you have taken the job? I don't know. Maybe. But you lied by omission. Dominic walked to his desk and took the photograph from her hands. He stared at it for a long moment. Julian didn't just steal my design. He stole 3 years of my work, presented it as his own, and when I confronted him, he turned it around on me. His family's lawyers buried me. I lost my degree 3 weeks before graduation. I lost my fiancé. I lost everything I'd worked for. The woman in the photo? Sarah. She believed Julian over me. She married his brother 2 years later. She sat in the chair across from his desk, trying not to notice how he moved, controlled and careful, like a man used to pain. I'll be direct, Dominic said. My firm is failing. I lost my business partner 6 months ago, and I've been trying to manage everything alone. I need someone who understands both the creative side and the business side. Someone who can rebuild what I've lost. Why me? Arya asked. I'm sure you know what happened. What people are saying about me. I know exactly what happened. I know the Prescotts destroyed your reputation because you told the truth about their golden boy. I also know you're one of the best in the business, and you're desperate enough to take a job with a failing architecture firm. His bluntness should have offended her, but instead, it felt refreshing. No false sympathy. No pretending. What's the pay? Not enough. But I can offer you equity. Help me save this company, and you'll own 15%. Arya studied him. There was something he wasn't telling her. She could feel it in the air between them, a weight of unspoken things. Why does this feel like there's more to it? Dominic's expression didn't change. Because there is. But that's a conversation for later. Right now, I need to know if you're willing to fight for something again. Arya thought about her empty apartment, her ruined reputation, the way Julian's mother had looked at her with such hatred. She thought about 6 months of silence and rejection. When do I start? Now. Uncovering the past. The first 2 weeks were brutal. Arya dove into Cross Architecture's files and discovered a company bleeding money. Dominic was talented, brilliant even, but he had no head for business. He took projects that barely broke even, paid his small staff more than he could afford, and seemed almost determined to fail. She implemented new systems, reached out to old contacts who might actually listen to her, and slowly began to see a path forward. But the question: associate with someone so unprofessional. Her event planning business, Arya Chen Events, which she had built from nothing over 5 years, was dead. No one would hire her. No one would even return her calls. Julian's family had made sure of that. She had $300 left in her bank account and rent was due in a week. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but desperation made her press accept. Is this Arya Chen? A man's voice, deep and professional. Yes. My name is Dominic Cross. I own Cross Architecture. I'm looking for an operations manager, someone with event planning experience who understands design and client relations. Your portfolio came across my desk. Are you available for an interview? Arya sat up straight. How did you get my portfolio? I have my sources. Are you interested or not? She should have been suspicious. She should have asked more questions. But she needed this job desperately. Yes. When? Tomorrow. 10 a.m. My office is at 2847 Westbrook Avenue. He hung up before she could respond. The man behind the door. Cross Architecture occupied a converted warehouse in the Arts District. The building was beautiful in a raw, industrial way, but clearly struggling. Only half the lights were on. The reception desk was empty. Arya climbed the stairs to the second floor where a single office door stood open. Inside, a man sat at a drafting table, his back to her. He wore a simple black shirt, sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms marked with faded scars. His dark hair was slightly too long, touching his collar. "Mr. Cross?" He turned, and Arya's breath caught. He wasn't classically handsome like Julian. His face was harder, marked by life. A thin scar ran through his left eyebrow. His eyes were gray, cold at first glance, but something deeper moved in them when he looked at her. Recognition? No, something else. Understanding. "Miss Chen. Thank you for coming." He stood, tall and lean. "Please, sit." She sat in the